Just in Quesnel this afternoon. I needed a little change, a little break, a little change of scenery, you know. Things get to me sometimes after sitting up there in the mountains for too long. And truthfully, we got some cool weather going on here today. It was hailing in Wells this morning. I didn't get video, I should have. But I think the point is it's going to do that again. It's only 1 o'clock in the afternoon. Not even. It's like 12:30 right now. And convection is popping. Look at some of this stuff right now. Let's see what we got here. Downtown Quesnel. Got that nice flat bottom on the bottom here. Inflow, that's the growth. Nice big tall cell. Been many like it. You can see on these guys over here. The bubbling going up. That's not a great example, but it's one that's visible from my current location. Look at that nice flat bottom. Nice flat bottom. Drinking, eating, feeding. That's what the flat bottom tells you. It's not raining, it's growing. It's only going to do one or two things. It's going to grow or it's going to rain out. That is the nature of it. Whether any one of these can make a couple flashes of lightning or not today, I'm not sure. It's possible though. Sure, early in the day to see them stacking up so tall. So that's what I'm guessing. So yeah, a little break from Wells this afternoon. Had to change it up, go buy myself a chicken sandwich, because I don't treat myself very often. There it is. This is bad news. My God. Falling out right now. Anything could happen. Get wow. I'll watch the video later. They try mopping this. But I was diagnosed many years ago. Bracelet the kid made me here. Diagnosed many years ago with major depression and PTSD. And for a lot of the last 5 years of sobriety, I've been doing very good with it. Been triggered this last week. And way angrier than I usually am. Like, I'm not generally a very angry person. I can come off that way because I'm emphatic and I'm passionate. And I really know what's right and wrong, and I won't let people off the hook. You know, I will if they say, you're right, I'm wrong. Okay, well, cool. But I mean, if they're not going to admit it, I won't let them off the hook. And, I mean, those are characters of mine. But I find when my mental health starts to slip, it does fall into anger. And I'm falling into that anger pattern right now. And I took it out a little bit on Kerry Gold. I mean, not in a blow a friendship up kind of way, but in a way I'm not okay with. Just having hard attitude, you know, being pissed off about things. And so a little drive out of town and clear the head. I remember the first time I got a report card that said Joey suffers from low self-esteem. It was in grade 2. Imagine that. Kid who's in grade 2 already feeling like he's shit. I know what it was from. It was from not having dad in my life. Although if he'd been in my life, maybe I would have had it worse. You know, in the 1980s in a small town like, you know, rural area like I grew up in, there wasn't many people in the entire school who didn't have two parents. You know, we only had 200 plus students in the school, Madoc Township Public School, and I was lucky to go there because although I didn't fit in, I was in a class of people that didn't care, you know, and we all got along really good. It was like our class against every other class in the school, and it's like it's us against them. And at least for the first 7 years of my public school, I had a sense of belonging, which eluded me quickly in high school. And that's what kind of brought me around to punk rock. So I was lucky to have had teachers, a small school, a principal like Art Goff, a teacher like Jan Bruce who identified, you know, when I'm in grade 2, that this is a kid who's suffering already, you know, and then they put me into special groups always. There was like 5 of us. It was like the only 5 kids in school whose families were, you know, were fucked. I mean, everyone else's families probably were too, but they were together. So everyone just assumes that means good things. If your family's together, it means that you must be okay. And truthfully, most of the students in school were pretty well adjusted. It was a rural place with lots of farm-type people and salt-of-the-earth people. And, you know, it was a pretty good place to go to school. I was lucky. If I'd been like in some city, a person like me with my brain, my creativity, my vision, if I'd been in a city, the suffering it would have caused me would have been untold. It would have ruined me. So I was lucky to have the farm. I was lucky to have the barn. And in that way, that's partly how I found weather. I mean, yeah, I got dinged by lightning when I was little, and you know, and not like a strike in the head or nothing like that, but felt the ground shock, and it freaked me out forever, and it made me want to find out what was going on with weather. What, you know, I remember Hurricane Hugo and Gilbert came as post-tropical lows to Ontario in 88 and 89, and I had to know everything about hurricanes, everything. I spent like months trying to find out everything I could possibly find out about hurricanes. I was like that. And weather was just like one of the many things that I would dive into, I guess, you know, like, for example, I don't know, I spent like 6 or 8 weeks learning all about filoviruses in high school, and just on my own, not for a project, not for any reason, just like needed to know about filoviruses. I even ended up buying Richard Preston's book Hot Zone and reading it fully through to find out the history of Marburg and Ebola and similar viruses, right? Weird stuff, weird things for young people to be like obsessed about. But I mean, that's how I was. I'd get interested in a topic, and I just, you know, when you're an only child and you live in the country and you got only one parent, eventually mom did marry when I was like 15, but you do what you got to do to keep your mind occupied, right? So of course, being outside a lot was a big part of it. Walking around with the dog, I slowly learned everything about what was going on in my pond and in my swamps and the beaver swamps around Mom's place, and the animals, the life, and the timing, and a lot of that I just figured out by sitting there for hours and hours and hours watching everything and realizing that all the personalities at play in the water, and the little frogs, and the minnows, and all the little things, the birds, and everything that works together in harmony to make this place so beautiful. And I think that's when, as a teenager, I started to get this feeling like civilization was destroying this beautiful thing. Now, maybe if I had been a person who had brothers and sisters, I wouldn't have had time to go think about all that stuff. Maybe if I wasn't some total left-handed creative freak weirdo, that I wouldn't have internalized my emotions so deeply and felt them and seen them and experienced them so deeply. That's possibly true too, that, you know, you could put a red flag on someone with a brain like mine when they're a kid. So eventually I'd spend time out there, you know, watching the weather too, like trying to figure out what's going on until I remember one day Andy Rollins was telling me on the school bus how he was scared of storms, would hide under his parents' bed or get into his bed with his parents. And I thought that was completely fucking weird. And I always didn't really like Andy much, you know, like didn't hate him or, you know, just didn't like him, you know, and didn't feel much towards him ever really. Just had to put up with him. He was one of those people. Probably like the only guy in my class I didn't really have a deep friendship with. Definitely one of those guys that his dad made sure he was in baseball, made sure he was in hockey, you know, had the new toys. He got a VCR for Christmas. Remember that in grade 2 or something like that? We got a VCR for Christmas, you know, and I remember like, who can afford that? You know, his dad worked for Hydro or whatever. I'm not here to talk about Andy Rollins. The point is, I realized after that he had told me that he was scared of storms. I was like, I gotta beat every last bit of this fear out of me. So then I'd like go out, and of course at the big power lines running through the wilderness at Mom's place there, 225,000 volts that come through out towards a big dam out there, Calabogie Dam, I believe it's connected to, up in Eastern Ontario. And I'd go sit under the lines because I knew the lightning would hit the lines and not me, and I would just accept that the storm was happening, even if I was getting rained on sometimes or getting hammered or getting hurt. Just accept it. Like, oh, the storm's happening. I'm here. Accept it. Until I became so fascinated, but not only just fascinated, I began to really understand what I was witnessing and what the patterns were, you know, like, wow, it came in fast and then it was gone. You know, like that was one of the first things I kind of really took stock of, was just how many storms didn't last, you know, and I was like, and realized that was a thing that I'd been seeing frequently in my life. You know, was that storms, just that front section is mad, you know, well, okay, well, and so first I just learned the patterns. I didn't really understand what they necessarily meant, but I could tell after a while if it was going to get more pissed off or less, you know, and in time I realized what the inflows and outflows were, and the rising air and heat and the instability and what's causing it. It took time. It took a lot of time just sitting and watching. Hours, tens of hours, hundreds of hours. So many thunderstorms come through central Ontario in a summer. You know, I would sit there sometimes all day. I learned all the tricks to figure out where they were, because you're in the forest there and you can't see much unless you're at the hydro lines where there's some opening, some open sky. You can kind of look out to the west there. Reality was that at Mom's place, you know, you don't have a very good view on what's going on out there for weather, you know, in the long distance. Like, I mean, if it's close, you'll know it, but obviously. So then I noticed, you know, over the years that when I was watching TV and lightning flashed outside, that there'd be immediate reaction on my television in terms of static. So having realized this, eventually I realized too that what channel I'm tuned into could determine what kind of static I was getting off the rabbit ears. For example, if I'm tuned into CTV in Ottawa, which was to the east of us, more or less, then and the lightning storm is to the west of me, that I wouldn't get nearly as good of interference from that bolt, you know. So then I started realizing that I could use, and eventually I clued in that the AM radio would do this too, but not the FM radio. But it might have been that the AM radio is where I noticed it first, and then when I seen the TV, I was like, oh, of course, it's the same. You know, where in the beauty of Ontario is I could tune to Bancroft, I could tune to Belleville, I could tune to Peterborough, I could tune to Ottawa, to different AM radio stations, and triangulate where storms were out there. It was like a really basic radar kind of, you know. I still use that technique, the AM radio technique, to this day. You've probably seen videos where I'm like looking at a big cloud trying to figure out how active is it in there. Turn on the AM radio and listen, and then start to decide, like, what's the behavior of the lightning, what can I infer, what can I learn from this behavior. So that's all cool stuff, right? Nonetheless, like, of course, a guy who's completely fucking fascinated with weather has some sort of mental health problem. Like, you know, I'm a very functional human in a lot of regards, and people expect that of me. And then they're really surprised when I hit the wall and I just can't go any further, you know. And I know for me, Joey, who feels like he's being used, and I don't mean that in a negative way, like being used for my talent and skill and appreciated, I can be built up really easily to the point where I become very loyal and very, like, hyper focused on the role that's given to me. And part of my struggle in life is I don't have those roles anymore. Besides being the Caribou Weather Dude, I'm not Joey the stage musician, you know, at least not in a lot of people's eyes. I'm not training officer of our fire department anymore in Wells, you know. Like, for a long time I was in the geology department at the mine, but now everybody who is part of that department's gone. And there's probably never a job for me there again. because I was part of the old regime with CEO Frank Callahan. And so what I'm finding is like the isolation I'm going through, I'd handle it better if I was still that kid in the swamp where I was like, well, nobody's here, no one's going to be here, so I just got to get on with my day and do something. Go walk around the forest and look at trees and watch weather and hang out with my dog. And I once got 4 boxes of National Geographics from the free store in the Madoc dump, and with it I spent the entire summer reading. I'd go out, I'd get baked, I'd go walk around the forest for a couple hours, I'd come in, read a couple of National Geographic articles, maybe a whole edition, and then I'd go back outside, walk around, smoke a little more weed. It's like I just let the time evaporate that way, and so part of what I find frustrating about living in a town where I don't feel very connected anymore to people. A lot of people I've been connected to are gone, and there's definitely more clique and division and more us and them in Wells than there was when I first came there. I feel like there was a little bit of the us and them at times in Wells, in the past. But there was a clear point, especially when David Jacob Harder was running Island Mountain Arts, where the divisions were really thin in town, like whether you were an actor, whether you were a miner or a logger, whether you were an arts person, everyone was getting along really good at that time, and everyone was trying to support each other. I mean, that was only 10 years ago, but I remember it clearly as the end of a great era in Wells. Anyways, it's just me today talking about. I'm sorry. Just driving and talking, clearing my head, trying to make sense of how I've managed to survive another 5 years with. I've had to really battle my brain to stay positive and stay on track. And I think what's happened to me is like I've had what I call a relapse. David Robinson called it this. And although, David and I don't really get along, and I'm not really interested in working with him anymore or being involved with you at all, David. You did say a couple things that I really took to heart and remembered. So it's not that I hate you. It's not that case at all. Maybe I identified you as a person of chaos who my stress levels couldn't deal with after a certain point. That's just basically how it is. Nonetheless, David said something that I'll always be thankful that he said, because I called him on it, when we were on tour. I was the crew boss, and we're at a fire, and David started getting, the elbow on this stand isn't really strong. That, I called him on it. He was being rageful out in the fire, and I was like, man, everything's fine. Like, we're working, we're here, we're out early, life's good, the weather's good, we got reliable people. Like, what's wrong? Like, nothing's actually wrong, and at some point that week, Dave came to me and said, sorry, I had a relapse. And he didn't mean that he was drinking. He was talking about his anger, and it was the anger that made him drink, or made him cling to drinking at some point of his life or for a long stretch of his life. And I understood that. I thought having 5 guys who were ex-alcoholics in the same truck would be a really great learning experience and growth experience. And it was actually the worst fucking tour I've ever been on. It was absolute hell. David was a big part of that. Nonetheless, I do care about you, David, if you're out there watching, and even if I don't want to work with you, or I have a bit of a standoffish attitude towards you, you did say something that helped my understanding of my life and helped my understanding of other people's lives, and I appreciate you for that. And it's that concept of relapsing into anger, he said. And I feel that this week. I feel relapsed into anger. I feel like this lifetime of frustration is boiling up. And I keep trying to push it down, I'm okay, life's good, everything's fine. It's like, damn it, Joey, people have been fucking mean to you. And what's even worse is that you're not the only one. You know, like, if it's just me that people are shitty to, then what happens is I end up beating myself up and internalizing it. First, there's like a hostile reaction. Well, fuck you. And then there's this deeper reaction in me that's like, you know, man, I guess I'm shit. You know what I mean? That deeper reaction. Like, whereas when you see that injustice is sort of just the standard, that makes me even angrier, because I know that it won't just be me that feels these things. You know? There, it's doing this thing again. My car won't switch gears into fourth sometimes. It's really annoying. I need a couple videos to go viral this winter. It never happened. That would have solved a lot of problems. Thankfully, people really kicked in and supported and helped the channel, kept me going, and I thank you all for that. Because ultimately, this channel was a mental health plan. You know, like, that was a big part of what I was trying to do with this channel. Was start the car, reset the sensor. Big part of what I was trying to do in this channel was just keep talking. I need to get a new stand for this camera. I need a GoPro proper, you know, like, yeah, there's things I'll budget for. But anyways, a lot of the things in this channel I was trying to accomplish off the top was just keep talking, you know. It was a sober project. It was like, here's the new me. See it, everybody. And then part of it was that I was so close to killing myself. I so nearly succeeded. After the fact, I realized, I'm shaken up by that still. It still affects me knowing that it was that close, you know. And then part of me felt like I wanted to capture my life afterwards, you know, like, maybe to prove to myself that my life was worth living. Maybe it was so that my kids could have a record of me should it ever get that close again, and not just, in terms of harming myself, self-harm. Although those temptations did sneak into my head this last week, and it really scared me. I don't think that's how it ends for me now. But any minute, you know, a moose could step out on the highway right now, and this last thing I ever say could be to you on the camera. You never know, right? You never know. So I wanted to just make a record, you know. I wanted to capture my life, and maybe I could prove to myself my life was worth living. Maybe I could prove to others that I have a lot to give still. And then ultimately and finally, I thought maybe I could help others. You know, that maybe my words of struggle or strength, and maybe because you look at me and say, well, that's a guy who's climbed hundreds of mountains and chased tornadoes and fought bears and fought wildfires. That's a guy who's been to protests, been arrested fighting with riot cops. That's a guy who's got no fear. I'm like, yeah, except for other, you know, except for public places, groups of people, and, you know, except for like my own insecurities, I guess. Fear them. Fear living a life that has no meaning. Fear living a life that was like, go to work, come home, go to work, come home. That's your life. That's all it's going to be. You know, I feared that. I wanted to be more. I wanted to be creative. I wanted to be an inspirational person. I always wanted that. And I guess part of my healing was to be that again, you know, or to embrace that. And then I have weeks like I just had where my mental health just hits the shit like it hasn't in 5 years, like not since I got sober. And then I feel like I'm a disappointment to people who ultimately rely on my big heart, my compassion, my sense of justice and duty, and I guess when I hit the ground that hard with depression, I feel like a failure on top of it. Oh, you let depression finally beat you, Joey. And now look at the ass you've made of yourself in public. And I think something that's bothered me for a long time is that people don't see me as a mental health consumer. And they see my strength and my boldness when it's there. They see what a leader I can be and how sure of myself I am about certain things. It's not myself I'm sure of, it's the facts I'm sure of usually. Because me alone, what's my opinion worth? It's worth nothing. But if I got a bunch of facts here that say, well, look, this is what's going on, then, So I feel like I've had to fight for my right to be seen or treated as a mental health consumer, where people who are around me will be like, all about safe space and mental health, but not Joey. He's big and scary. Like that's how it feels sometimes. We're here to support people and lift them up, but not that guy. He's big, tall, loud, and white, male, and sometimes obnoxious and hard to get along with, and hard to understand sometimes. And he's on a mental trip that's fucking way out there sometimes. Sometimes he's just begging to be seen. Like, hey, don't treat me like I'm crazy, but B, understand that I can't do this alone. I'm struggling. Trying my best to make something of myself, something better, something more. And I'm hoping that fire season gives me work and that I come back to being a full-time YouTuber in the fall, feeling real sure about myself and feeling real sure about what I'm doing. The stupid camera elbow keeps moving. Maybe that's a sign that I've been talking too long. Hit the likes, hit the shares, hit the subscribes. And if you're feeling lonely out there, you can let me know in the comments, for example, do what I can for you. A lot of people have called on me to get sober. That's one of the big honors of my life, is that I've been able to help a lot of people since I got help myself. And I'm still struggling here, but I'm still a good guy. I still care. I still love people, and I'm quick to forgive if I'm mad at people in Wells right now. All they gotta do is the right thing. And I believe that Donna at Island Mountain Arts is capable of that. She's a good person. I guess they just don't view community the way I do. They don't view the role of an artist the way I do. They don't understand that creating a scene together is so fundamentally important that you can't say we're a community arts organization, not try to lift everybody up who's aspiring to be an artist, who's in the town. And what Paul used to do with the Arts Wells festivals, he groomed people to do that. He knew before I came up to Wells, and there's 2 times in my life where I was in real serious danger, personally, from self-harm. There's times where I was in danger, but 2 times it was bad. I was on a trend that was going towards destruction. And I was so humiliated, embarrassed, and hated myself for it. And even Paul Crawford then was like, hey man, we need you. Come be part of it. And even now he's running the festival in Penticton. He calls me up and says, hey man, we need you. You put in all these years for Arts Wells. We care about you. We want to see your music career come back. The world needs your voice. It needs your songs. It needs you. And you need you. And I was so scared. I spent all day Saturday in near tears at that festival, feeling the liberation of just want to be Joey only again, the way I used to be. So that's my goal, friends. I'm sorry I'm all over the place, and I'm kind of a crazy idiot. Can't really fully help it. Okay, camera keeps moving, so that's it. That's an episode. We'll see you next time, everybody. Care about you, care about your struggles, care about your well-being. I care about you all. I really do. Be good out there.